Pledge allegiance to my team. I think Casey just doesn't want to come on.
He has to watch it.
I know, but she's welcome on the show. She's welcome.
Hooday, baby. It is Thursday, and we have Thursday night football here in the Queen City. The Cincinnati Bengals taking on the wretched Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm Reed Mouse. We have Off the Bench. We have a great show for you today. Craig Salen's coming on at 10:30. He's going to be on the Bengals watch-along later tonight for Chatterbox Bengals. I will be doing the watch-along. My producer today, Stone Shields, is listen, the spread is 5.5. Stone Shields is going to be in Paycor Stadium tonight. He's going down to the stadium. He's worth 3 alone. He's worth 3 points. Stone, you excited to go down to the game tonight?
Yeah, it's been a minute since I've been down there, based on, what I've been doing. Certainly last year I was not able to go to the games. And then this year, it was no Joe Burrow. I was like, do I really want to spend, the money to go down there? But as we've said on the show all week, we're getting a victory tonight. I feel pretty good about that. So going down with some buddies should be a good time. White out. I'm ready, clearly. And, we're fired up, ready to go.
Yeah, did you get that when you went to the Super Bowl?
No, I did not. Was not at that game.
Did go to the AFC Championship game. We've both been doing it. We've been talking about the games we've been to, and he went to the one they won, and I went to the one they lost. So we've been to both AFC Championship games. He had a much better experience than I did, probably. But Stone Shields going down to Paycor Stadium tonight, sitting up at the top. When was your last game? Do you remember the last time you went to a game down there?
Put me on the spot here. Honestly, I think my last game would have been 2 seasons ago. I didn't go to any games last year. 2 seasons ago, and it was the final game of the year where they played the Browns with Jake Browning and beat the crud out of them, but it meant nothing. So that was the last time I was there.
One of the most fun games I've ever had down there at Paycor Stadium was Andy Dalton's senior day. His final game, the first year of Zach Taylor, his final game, we played the Browns, and I think we kept them out of the postseason. I think they were playing for something, and we were not, and we beat them, if I recall that game accurately. But those final games can sometimes be a little wonky. They can be a little fun, but you'll have a fun one here tonight. The whiteout Thursday night game. There's nothing better than primetime football. The only primetime game I've ever been to is that Ravens game, the Ravens playoff game against Tyler Huntley, the Sam Hubbard thing. I talk all the time about this off air. Maybe I do it on air too, and I swear we'll get into the show at some point. But just the prices of these Bengals tickets, and it's not just how good the Bengals have been over the last 5 years that have caused this. If you look across the NFL, the prices of tickets have shot through the roof. I went to that Ravens playoff game for like $80, and then I went to that AFC Championship game, that same playoff run, for $140. And I think the cheapest ticket tonight is just around $200 if I recall. It's well over $150. I don't know how you got your tickets, where you got
it. It was $130 for me.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's about $130. It is crazy. I remember going to the year after we went to the AFC Championship game. It was my best friend. I was the best man. And his wedding, we went to a bachelor party down there at Tennessee. It's when we got the break speed off us by the Titans. And those tickets were $200 plus for a bad Titans team against, I think we were 1-2 at the time, 1-2 Cincinnati Bengals team. So the prices of tickets have just gone through the roof. But next Sunday, the Jets games are pretty cheap. All right, Thursday night football tonight here on Amazon Prime. Cincinnati Bengals. It's gotten all the names. The Icy Hot Bowl, the Salt and Pepper Bowl is what my sister-in-law called it because of obviously the gray hair and everything like that, which I responded to them. I was like, when she called it the Salt and Pepper Bowl, I was like, shoop. My 90s hip-hop fans will get that joke. But here's my thoughts on the Cincinnati Bengals game tonight. I cannot shake the unnerving feeling, and I don't know why. There really should be no reason for it, that the Bengals, as 5.5-point underdogs against the AFC favorite in a team that has pretty much every year put it to our necks, the Pittsburgh Steelers. I cannot shake the fact that the Cincinnati Bengals are going to find a way to win tonight. I haven't felt this really since the Minnesota Vikings game. I did think we were going to beat the Vikings up there in Minnesota. After the first 2 wins, I was like, man, anything's happening this year. Maybe the luck's back on our side. Obviously, we got the break speed off us. Did not think we were going to beat the Denver Broncos. Did not think that we were going to beat the Detroit Lions. Did not think we were going to beat the Green Bay Packers. In fact, in all 3 of those games, I pretty much thought we were going to get our tail whipped, and we did. And we did. But here tonight, against this Pittsburgh Steelers team, and 40-plus-year-old Aaron Rodgers, and Mike Tomlin, who we like to make fun of, but it is impressive that he has a winning season every single year that he's been the head coach. Like, you make fun of that. It doesn't get you anything. They haven't won a playoff game since 2016. But in a league that is so easy to, go back to a 3-win team or a 2-win team if, your quarterback plays not good. I mean, he had Kenny Pickett, for Christ's sake. And they're still winning more games than they lose, especially here against this Cincinnati Bengals team. But I cannot shake the fact that I think we are going to win this game. It is going to be the most competitive game that I think they're going to play since week 2. And I put this up yesterday. I started off the show with this. It is a monumental game in the fact that it can drastically sway your opinion on what you think this season can be. Stone pushed back on that thought. I said that you win this game because I flip-flopped back and forth. Are we going to be good or are we going to be bad? Are we going to be good or are we going to be bad? Are we going to go for it or are we going to tank? I'm basically putting it all the chips on the table for this game. We win, I'm all on board for, hey, let's win some games. Let's keep this thing afloat. Who cares where we pick in the draft? Who cares about reloading this, what seems like a depleted roster? Who cares about all that? Let's keep winning. Let's try to keep winning. Let's keep competing. And if we lose, drop 5 in a row, down to 2-5, pretty much put yourself outside of AFC North contention, and you go, all right, well, let's start thinking about next season and thinking about how we can compete at a better course in 2026. That all comes down tonight, in my opinion. And I get what Stone's saying. You got to go 2-1 over these next 3 games. So you beat the Bears, you beat the Jets. You're still floating. You're absolutely right. But you win this game, and you can put some pressure on this Pittsburgh Steelers team. This is a Steelers team that hasn't played a primetime game yet. This is a Steelers team that is well aware of what the nation thinks of them. And while the nation respects them as a franchise that, as I mentioned earlier, wins seemingly every single year, they've not thought of them as true contenders since 2017, since 2016. And here they are, 4-1 in a depleted AFC, and this is their first time in front of a national audience to go, hey, we are for real, we are here. This is a team that you guys should be worried about in the American Football Conference. They're well aware of that. Mike Tomlin's well aware of that. TJ Watt, all the pieces of the team that have been around for quite some time. And Aaron Rodgers, obviously, he's got his ear to the media. There's no doubt about that. And this is a chance to further the stereotype. If you win tonight, the Cincinnati Bengals win tonight, and say, no, this team isn't for real. You go ahead and look at that Steelers schedule coming up. They don't got many easy wins. They do not have many easy wins. They're playing Green Bay, and they're playing the Colts, and they're playing the Chargers before they play us again. And if you win tonight, there's a chance that the next time that we play the Pittsburgh Steelers, coming off that bye week, not to get you guys too excited because you got to win the games in front of you. You got to take one step before you can run. There's a chance that if you win tonight, the next time we play the Steelers, it's an extremely exciting game. An incredibly exciting game based off the schedule ahead that they have and based off the schedule ahead that we have. And this team, though they're winning games, though people are saying, man, Aaron Rodgers still has it, you kind of whittle down deep into this team, and what do they have? They're currently 29th in yards per game. They're well into the 20s in points per game. Their defense, though they have some big names, TJ Watt, Jalen Ramsey, all those guys, it's still not a premier defense in the same way that you think of other teams. Like, they can get after us tonight, and they can really put a thorn in the side of Joe Flacco and our offense that I said the Steelers are 29th in the league. It's worth bearing that the Bengals are 31st in yards per game. But this is a Steelers team that if you win tonight, if you're able to, in front of the home crowd, that will be rocking, Stone Shields included, after going to knock back Nats, no free ads, and knocking back some natties. Oh. This is a chance to really have everyone talking about on Friday. No one will be talking about the Cincinnati Bengals if they win this game. What they will be talking about is, oh, that Steelers team's not for real. We gave them a chance. This is the first time seeing them on national television. Nah, they're not for real. And nothing, as the biggest Pittsburgh Steelers hater that I know, there's nothing that would make me happier than to tune in to all the national shows tomorrow. And I will tune into every single one except for from 10 to 12 because I got to do this show and then I got to listen to Stone's show as I do every single day. Nothing would make me happier than for everyone to poo-poo on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Stone Shields going to knock back Nats tonight. You said that you feel like the Bengals have a serious shot tonight.
Yeah.
What makes you believe that?
Well, lots of different things. One, I think obviously you got to be intrigued with what you saw offensively in the second half against Green Bay. I think that's something that can carry over. Clearly, you found something there. It was clicking. The ball was getting out of Flacco's hands quickly. You realize, oh, yeah, this team still has Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and they're still really good at football. And if you can get the ball in their hands, just give them opportunities to make plays, they're going to make some plays. It looked like the offensive line developed a little bit more continuity as the game went on. we'll see how that line looks tonight. Whether Lucas Patrick maybe makes his return, or if you just kind of roll it back with what you had last week, which Dalton Reisner started the game out shaky, but I thought he settled in more in the second half. And, Pittsburgh, they only have one loss, but again, we've all kind of sat here and said the same thing. Like, they have a difficult schedule coming up. They haven't exactly won these games with flying colors. I think they're going to come back down to life a little bit here, and you and I were talking off the air. Bengals win this game, you might have a bit of a skid coming up if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers. Aaron Rodgers has been tremendous for them. He's making the right decision with the football, not exactly pushing it down the football field these days anymore, but a lot of back shoulder stuff to DK. Clearly the two of them have a good rapport, but this is a Pittsburgh team that can't run the football. And if that continues in this game and you make Aaron Rodgers one-dimensional, you have Shamar Stewart coming back, maybe you can get some pass rush on the 40-plus-year-old quarterback, and that could open up some things for you. But I think the key to this game is going to be if Pittsburgh continues to struggle running the football, but if they break things out and they start running the ball well here this week, I think the Bengals probably lose. But where they're at as far as a run defense goes, did a decent job of that in the Green Bay game. Josh Jacobs, he broke through there in the second half. But I think if you can slow down what they're doing on the ground. Caleb Johnson, their third-round pick, he hadn't done nothing for them this year. Jalen Warren is kind of their guy, along with Gainwell. And those, they're solid players, but they're not, crazy good backs. And if you can limit them on the ground, as they've been limited all year, make them one-dimensional, I think you have a good chance to win in this game.
Caleb Johnson, Chatterbox Sports alum, spent a lot of time on our airways back when he played for the Hamilton Big Blue. It's funny, when Caleb got drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers, there was 31 teams that Caleb Johnson could have gone to, and I was rooting for Caleb Johnson. My cousin was his head football coach at Hamilton High, and obviously got to interview Caleb a lot on the show that Stone took over, the Big Blue Sports Show. And I got to interview Caleb a lot, and I was just sitting there thinking, I was like, man, you go to 31 teams, I can root for you, KJ. You go to 31 teams, I'm there for you. I rooted for the Iowa Hawkeyes his entire time there, and he goes to the one team that I cannot root for him. So I cannot root for Caleb Johnson, and it's his homecoming. Maybe he'll make a big factor in this game. I know they've not used him at all, especially after the snafu that he had. I think it was back in week 2. Their first loss was that against the Seahawks, where he was the kick return guy, and man, he just had a brain fart there where he let the Seahawks score a touchdown. But you said that you felt like the Bengals' run defense played well against the Green Bay Packers. I'll disagree. I think that if the Bengals' defense plays the way that they did against the Packers, then that creates some problems for the Steelers, for this Bengals defense. And the Steelers team, I think, can open a lot of things up. I feel like run game, we have to be able to stop a bad run team. You have to be able to stop a bad run team, which in turn could make this Pittsburgh Steelers team drop back Aaron Rodgers a lot more. I know we're waiting to hear if Trey Hendrickson's going to play or not. He's a gamer. I know that the thought is that he probably won't play, but you never know with a guy like Trey. We do get Shamar Stewart out, and if we're able to stop that run game, if we're able to kind of negate anything the Pittsburgh Steelers can do, running, and they're starting to drop back Aaron Rodgers, and we can put a little bit pressure on him, maybe have some blitz packages, maybe Shamar, Miles Murphy, and hopefully a Trey Hendrickson are out there putting pressure on Aaron. All of a sudden, he's having to get rid of the ball quickly, and he's not able to take some downfield threats, which I knew was also a thorn in our side against Green Bay Packers, and really has been a thorn in our side during this 4-game losing streak. If we're able to do all of that, you really like what our defense, the opportunity that our defense has. This is a team that hasn't fared well. Zach Taylor, Cincinnati Bengals, really our entire life, the Cincinnati Bengals have not fared well against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Mike Tomlin, I have a lot of respect for him. Obviously, he doesn't have a whole lot of respect for Andrew Berry and the Cleveland Browns as he made the big move, or made the big what to do about the Browns trading Joe Flacco to the Cincinnati Bengals mid-season, helping an in-division rival team get better, which I get. I understand. I've never seen a head coach go after an opposing team quite like that. Truly have never. Like, not an opposing team that you either just played or that you're going to play. Just kind of seems like a side shot. And Joe Flacco's 12-12 all time against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So he's had some success. And a team that is consistently good like the Pittsburgh Steelers, all you can hope for is pretty much being a 500 team like Joe Flacco has been in his career starting. But I think it all starts, and making the Pittsburgh Steelers a little bit more one-dimensional. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers and DK Metcalf have kind of created some synergy. Aaron Rodgers is getting rid of the ball quicker than he ever has in his career, and I honestly believe that if the Bengals are going to win tonight, that's going to have to continue. We're going to have to continue to put pressure. Aaron's old. He doesn't want to get hit, just like Joe Flacco doesn't want to get hit. Just like pretty much every old quarterback doesn't want to get hit. You saw that with Tom Brady. You saw that with Peyton Manning. You saw that with Drew Brees. All these old guys, they don't want to get hit anymore. They've taken their licks. They've paid their dues. They don't want to do it anymore. But if we can make their offense and make Aaron Rodgers make quick decisions, I like our chances tonight. On the offensive side of the ball, I think you brought this up, Stone. We started to see it kind of get moving. We started to see the offense get kind of churning and move the ball. Obviously, it was one of the worst halves that we've seen this offense play in the first half against the Green Bay Packers. But really what opened it up is Joe getting the ball to Jamar Chase. And I've said this ever since that Joe Burrow went down. When you have the best or the second best wide receiver, however you think of Jamar Chase, I think he's the best. When you have the best wide receiver in the league, when you have what could be the best skill position in the league, skill player in the league, your responsibility if you're Zach Taylor, your responsibility if you're the point guard of this offense, Joe Flacco or previously Jake Browning, is to get the ball in the hands of your best players. This sport, this NFL, we can sit here for 5 hours a week and we can break down the X's and the O's. We can break down what our team is going to be able to do or what formations and what alignments we're going to do. We could break that all down, but at the core, football is a simple game. You find your strengths and you push it against their weaknesses. You get the ball in the hands of your best skill players, and you see what happens. You get your best players in positions to make plays. And we did that in the second half against the Green Bay Packers. Obviously, the first play of the line of scrimmage last week against the Packers was an end around to Jamar Chase that pretty much negated anything we were going to do on that drive. It did not work. But I like the idea. I like the sentiment of, all right, here's Uno. Here's the ball, Uno. Go get to some yards. Let's do quick slants to T. Higgins. Let's do slants to Jamar Chase. Let's do screens or flat routes to Jamar Chase. Let's get him the ball. Let's get them the ball as often as possible. Joey Porter last year had, I think, 5 defensive pass interferences in one game. He's going to be over T. Higgins today in man coverage. Can we put some pressure on Joey Porter? Can we get the ball downfield to T? Can we block long enough? Lucas Patrick, Dalton Reisner, Dylan Fairchild, all should be ready to go. I believe that's right, Stone. All 3 of our guards should be ready to go. Dalton Reisner graded very well last week. I think he was in the 90s in pass blocking. Still had a terrible grade run blocking, but that's this team. Can we continue to elaborate? What are we going to do with our guards? Is it going to be the rookie? Is it going to be Dalton Reisner? I don't know. But we've got to make Aaron Rodgers make quick decisions. And he's been very good at it this year, but we still got to continue to make good decisions. Cannot get beat on the run. Cannot have our defense stay out there on the field. And offensively, we got to get the ball in the skill makers' hands, skill players' hands, our playmakers' hands. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. Stone, one area of this offense that I think is going to be interesting to key tonight is we saw the great majority of the carries for the first, 5 weeks go to Chase Brown. Mm-hmm. For the first time last week, and we saw the ball given to Samaje Perine. And for the first time last week, we saw us have a little success running the ball in that second half. Do you anticipate Samaje Perine being a big part of this game once again?
Yeah, I think you have to, find ways to get him involved. We'll see if it's just third down stuff or if they, get him involved on some earlier down stuff there as well. Look, I think the world of Chase Brown, this was supposed to be his, breakout year. I mean, you could argue last year was, but he was supposed to be really, really good this year with Joe Burrow and this offense. Obviously, Burrow goes down. That hurts a lot for Chase Brown. And the type of back that he is, he's a shifty guy. He's not the biggest guy in the world. He's got some power, but, he's a threat out of the backfield. He's just kind of a different style of back than what the Bengals require right now with this offensive line. That's just kind of the reality of the situation. When Burrow's back, whether it be the end of this year or next year, I think you're going to see Chase Brown kind of take that step. Unfortunately, he can't be that guy without Joe Burrow. I just think that's the way things are right now, and you need more of a physical style back that could run a little bit more inside the tackles and fight through contact at the line of scrimmage, right? I mean, Shemaze Perine is a bigger dude, and with this offensive line, how they're doing from a run blocking perspective, you're going to get hit right at the line of scrimmage. It's up to you to be able to push through that and make some guys miss or bully through some tackles in order to gain some positive yardage. I thought you saw some good things from Perine in the run game against Green Bay. He's tough. He's physical. And against this front from Pittsburgh, I think that's something we're probably not talking about enough, honestly, is this Pittsburgh defense, right? We talk about Baltimore and how they look completely different from any Raven defense we've ever seen. This Steelers defense is still really, really good, and they're still at the forefront of what they accomplished as a football team. Aaron Rodgers is getting a lot of, hype and attention and eyeballs at this point, but that Steelers defense is real. They still have Hayward there on the defensive line. Herbig, by the way, leads the team in pressures. He's got one more than TJ Watt. And, from a linebacker perspective and that defensive line perspective, they're really, really good. It's just up to the offensive line of Cincinnati to hold a little bit and have an opportunity to exploit some of their weaknesses in the back end of that defense. Because, Joey Porter, as you alluded to, Ramsey's made some good plays, but he's not the same player he once was, even moving to that nickel spot a little bit more this year. But there's going to be some opportunity to take some shots down the field if the offensive line can hold up. That obviously is the question. Yeah,
that is the biggest question. And if this offensive line can give time to Joe Flacco, if this offensive line can give enough time for Jamar or T or whoever to get downfield just a little bit to make those big plays. We're still lacking in that big play ability. And Joe Flacco, if he doesn't have time, like if there's pressure on him, and this is a great defensive front from the Pittsburgh Steelers, if he doesn't have time, then those big plays aren't going to happen. Point blank, they're just not. You're going to have to get rid of it quickly, and it's going to look almost like what the team looked like in the early 2023 season where Joe Burrow was getting rid of the ball very quick because he couldn't move very well because of his calf. He was pretty much a standing statue. That's what Joe Flacco is. If we can protect him just enough, and we saw the offensive line protect them pretty well, honestly, pretty well in that second half, a defensive front that's really good and mirrors this Pittsburgh Steelers defensive front. Green Bay's did with Micah Parsons, who is the most deadly defensive lineman that the Bengals have played this year, and he didn't give up a sack. I'm just going to warn you that the one thing we knew when Joe Flacco got here was that he's going to throw some interceptions, and he's going to get sacked, and we didn't see any of those in the first game. That will probably happen tonight. Can we still overcome it? And can we still are the interceptions are they on downfield plays? I'm okay with that. They can't be in the short field. I'm okay with arm punts. I'm okay with that from time to time. Obviously, you can't have 3 in a game with a backup quarterback. But can we present enough time to Joe Flacco? Can we keep the Watts and Cam Hayward? He's been in the league for a long time, but I really never thought that he was all that great of a player based off of the college he went to. It's not many good players come from that school. But that offensive line, can they hold up like they did last week against the Green Bay Packers? Can they present enough time to let T. Higgins get downfield? I think if we can get T. Higgins downfield where he's going to have Joey Porter on him, I think there's going to be some chances there. Jalen Ramsey, he's fantastic. But when he's going up against Jamar Chase, who Jamar Chase is in the prime of his career, Jalen Ramsey is no longer in the prime of his career. Can we get some big plays there? I like our opportunities here. And they're gonna create some discord. They're gonna send some blitzing packages. But based off what I saw in that second half, I respect Joe Flacco's ability to see the field. There's nothing that the Pittsburgh Steelers are gonna throw at Joe Flacco in this offense that Joe Flacco hasn't seen before. He's played a lot of games. He's played a lot of snaps in the National Football League. So nothing's gonna surprise him. Can he react promptly? All right. We promised Craig Sandlin on this show. Craig was gracious enough to come on here. He's got his Bengals hat already on. He's going to be on the watch-along later tonight with me, as we're going to be watching along on that Thursday night football game. Craig, how are you on this lovely Thursday morning down in the beautiful city of Memphis, Tennessee?
What's up, Reed? I'm good. Just waking up, so I'll try to get my energy going, try to get it ready and rock and rolling. But just waking up, it's 9:30 here. Getting ready to start my day. Splash the water on the face, and here we go.
Did you wake up listening to Welcome to the Jungle as I do every game day?
How could I have any option when I wake up to a text from Reed Mouse with the video for Welcome to the Jungle?
Yeah.
I mean, it's my only option when I wake up.
Correct. And you got to play it. That's how you should wake up your family. That's how you should wake up your neighbors, is with Welcome to the Jungle by Guns N' Roses. I send it in the Discord. I send it in every
chat.
Every group chat that I'm in. If we had text within this month of October, I will send it in that chat. It goes to my family. It goes to my in-laws. It goes to everyone. But, Craig, this is a big one. Yesterday on the show, I said this has big swing game mentality. And I know it gets tiresome. I know it gets a little trite, constantly calling like games must win, even though that's where the Bengals kind of put us every single year, is everything feels like a must win. But I said I've been flip-flopping back and forth talking about this game or talking about this season, that I don't know if they should continue to compete. I don't know if they should, just kind of phone it in and start looking towards 2026. And I've used this game as saying, all right, we win this game, I'm all on board. You get to 3-4, you have a couple games that you are able to win. I don't know if they will, but you are able to win in the 2 weeks after that. Or you drop to 2-5 and you can pretty much smell the end of the season. How big of a swing game do you think this is for the Bengals tonight?
I think it's huge. And the reason that I think it's huge, Reed, is because I think the only hope for the Cincinnati Bengals team to get into the playoffs this year is through the wild card. Or I'm sorry, is through the AFC North. Wow,
I agree.
That was terrible.
I agree.
If you look at the other three divisions, all three of them, their second place team are all sitting at 4-2 right now. So you have to leap essentially 6 teams or 3 of 6 teams in order to get into the wild card this year, versus winning the AFC North, where again the Steelers are sitting at 4-1 right now. But if you win tonight, they're only a game ahead of you in the win column, and you have to play them again in 3 weeks. Or 4 weeks, I guess, with the bye week. But it all starts tonight, and you got to get that momentum going, because the next 2 are must-wins for sure when you talk about the Jets and you talk about the Bears. Now, you can sit here and you can say, oh, well, the Bengals realistically need to go 3-1 over the next 4. That's probably more accurate than saying that they need to go 2-1 over the next 3, respectfully to Stone. I think they have to get one of the 2 against the Steelers. I just don't think you can get swept by the Steelers and have any hope of catching them. But it starts tonight. You have to show that the second half of Green Bay wasn't a fluke. You have to show that your defense can be better than what they've shown. You have to show that Joe Flacco in this offense can be as good as they showed and not as bad as they showed in the first half. Zach Taylor was asked this week about the playbook and about what Joe Flacco can expect coming in on a short week after a short week to start his career with the Bengals. And Zach Taylor said that you'd be surprised how much they can implement in this short period of time. So it'll be interesting to see exactly what Zach Taylor and Joe Flacco roll out tonight against the Steelers team on national TV.
Yeah, I think based off of how important this game is going forward, for all the reasons that you laid out, all the reasons that I laid out, that if there is a bag of tricks, if there is the proverbial kitchen sink in the playbook for the Cincinnati Bengals, I think you throw it at them. I think you put it all out there, because knowing if you don't win this game, it's pretty bleak looking forward. And knowing if you do win this game, it is a tremendous step forward, and I'm with you. They have to go 3-1 over these next 4 games if they want to make the postseason. I also think they have to kind of go 5-1 in the division if they want to make the postseason. Any way that you look at the schedule and you go, all right, we got to get to 10 wins. How do we get there? It almost always comes with the Bengals going 5-1 in the division, sans them getting some crazy wins against teams like the Bills or something like that. So a big part of why
you have to assume that Lamar Jackson is going to be back by Thanksgiving when they play the Ravens. So what we've seen from the Ravens so far, defensively, I think they are who we think they are in terms of their defense. Their defense is not on the same level as it has been, but you got to have a lot of faith in Harbaugh and this coaching staff to figure that piece out and improve over the next several weeks. So Lamar will be back. The defense will be better. And they're going to be playing on Thanksgiving night. So that Ravens stretch that you have there in week 13, 14, and 15 if you're not right there with the Steelers at that point in the season and you're going with that kind of a gauntlet, you can wave it goodbye.
Yeah, I'm with you. Last week in the second half, we saw this offensive line in the pass blocking perspective play very well. It was the one thing that we kind of, when we traded for Joe Flacco, everyone's like, oh, man, that guy's going to be a sitting duck with this offensive line. And he still might be. We've seen two halves from Joe Flacco. One wasn't very good. One was pretty good. We have Dylan Fairchild's going to play. I believe Lucas Patrick is back, and Dalton Reisner played very, very well. What do you anticipate from this offensive line and the way that who you think is going to be playing, and how do you think they're going to perform against a pretty good defensive front from the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Well, whoever it is going to have their work cut out for him. I don't think there's any question about that. My gut says that you rock with Reisner and with Fairchild to start, but I don't think Zach Taylor is going to be slow to kind of mix and match to figure out what the best combination is. I would assume that throughout practice this entire week, he's been doing just that, giving them reps with Fairchild and Patrick, giving them reps with Fairchild and Reisner, giving them reps with Reisner and Patrick as well, just to figure out what's your best combination, because at this point you've got to figure that out and you've got to continue to improve on the offensive line. You mentioned it. They had a big challenge last week with Micah Parsons and with Lucas Van Ness in this Green Bay Packers front. Well, they're going to have just as big of a challenge this week with the Steelers. They're second in the league with 20 sacks on the season. And remember, they've already had their bye week. And so everybody else, or a majority of the other teams that they're competing with for that lead, have played an extra game. Now, they're pretty far behind Denver, who is unreal this year on the defensive front of things. They've got 30 sacks, but they're tied for second despite the fact that they've played a game less. And it starts up front with Nick Herbig and TJ Watt, as we've talked about. And then you look at even the rookie sensation in Derek Harmon that they brought in the draft this year, and a guy that I know a lot of Bengals fans had their eye on in terms of potential draft pick for the Bengals. All of those guys are providing pressure, and so you have to be stout across the entire front. You can't have any weak links. Everybody has to be up to their game and ready to go. And who it's going to be is, I think, anybody's question at this point. I mean, technically, I would think that Lucas Patrick and Dylan Fairchild are probably first on the depth chart, but I'm not sure that I would lean on that 100% as you go into this game, that's going to be who's going to get the ball and who's going to stay in the game the entire time. Because when you really nail down everything, Lucas Patrick hasn't had any reps in 4 weeks. And so they're going to have to come into this, figure out, is he really ready? He came and started practicing last week, continued practice this week, and now it's time to actually show whether or not he's truly ready to perform in the game.
Yeah, and also on an offensive line that has struggled for years now, not just this year, but years, I don't know if you're comfortable saying like, this is for sure your spot anywheres. And when Dalton Reisner performs like he did last week, you kind of got to give it and go like, all right, you played well. Can you do it again? You've earned another chance to play. So we will see. Another guy who played well, that really wasn't circled as a big impact player before the season last week, was Samaje Perine. We saw Chase Brown in this run game kind of run into walls for 5 weeks and 5.5 weeks, and then we give it to the veteran Samaje Perine, who had been here before, and we haven't seen a whole lot of, and it kind of worked at certain times. Like, he had some big runs. I know the run game isn't, we're not the last year's Baltimore Ravens or last year's Philadelphia Eagles, but he did have some okay runs. Do you anticipate Samaje Perine being another, getting as many carries this week as he did on Sunday?
Well, he got 6 carries. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and act like he took the bulk of the carry. Chase Brown took
in the
9.
second half, though. All 6 of them, I believe, were in the second half.
I'd have to go back and check. I don't remember off the top of my head. That might be true. He carried 6 times for 16 yards, 2.7 per pop. I think the thing that we saw last weekend with the Packers is that Chase Brown is an exponentially better runner when he's running outside the tackles and when they're getting him out into space, and he can make guys miss out in that realm. Samaje Perine is going to be your between the tackles kind of guy. And so that's what, and you guys were kind of talking about it. Samaje Perine's built differently than Chase Brown. The expectation coming into the season was that Chase Brown could be a 3-down back and that he could carry you the entire game. We haven't necessarily seen that, especially in early downs throughout this season. Now, when you get him out into space and you get him on those pitch plays that we started to see, that's when he popped his season-long 13-yarder, which is crazy to say that that's a season-long, but that's when you started to see him start to have some success last year, was when you got him outside the tackles. And so it'll be interesting to see, because this Pittsburgh team has historically been one that you can't run outside the tackles on because they're so quick up front and they're able to swallow you up before you're able to get out into space. Now, I haven't watched enough film of the Steelers this year, to be honest with you, to know whether or not that's still the case, but my gut is telling me that they're going to need to try and pound the ball between the tackles like they did last week with Samaje Perine, and then a change of pace back like Chase Brown might be in store for those outside runs and the screenplays and stuff like that. But what 100% has to happen is you have to establish that run game in order to keep this pass rush at bay. If you come out there and you're trying to throw the ball 45 times this week, those Pittsburgh Steelers front four are going to just key off and they're going to get after you. And so Joe Flacco and his immobility will be under stress all game long if that's the game plan. I'd much rather them be unsuccessful in a run game but be consistent with it than to abandon that and try and go and throw 45 times and hope that that works out. That hasn't been a recipe for success without Joe Burrow back there, regardless. And so I certainly hope that that's not the game plan for tonight as well. But I'm not going to sit here and expect them, I'm not going to expect Chase Brown to average 5 yards a carry or anything like that. But I would like to see them combine for 20-plus carries tonight.
I'm with you. And I think part of the reason that Samaje felt like he was a bigger part of the game is because he was a bigger part compared to where he was coming into yesterday's game. He had 9 carries total. And last Sunday, he
was
6.
in on the first drive, Reed. It wasn't even like, I think I put it in the chat when you were doing the watch along, but Samaje Perine was in there on the first drive, and I was confused. Like, not in any sort of like negative way, but like, I was wondering, was Chase Brown being penalized as a penalty for something that he did, for team related? Was something else going on? It just seemed like it was the game plan for whatever reason, and I think that's fine. It just it's a departure from the norm. And if you're Zach Taylor and your seat is potentially as hot as some people think it is, I know there's a lot of people that don't think that the Bengals would make an in-season move anyway, but there's a lot of smoke around there, and I think the odds right now are that he's like the third most likely coach to be fired. So yeah, I mean, I think ultimately you keep this defense on the field as long as you can by running the ball more, and it helps make sure that you take care of the ball, which we'll talk about a little bit more too, which is my number one key to the game for today.
Sure.
So
yeah, and we'll get to that here in a second after we talk about the defense. And I think a big reason that Samaje probably played is because I think that they are terrified, as they should be, of the mobility of Joe Flacco, and Samaje is obviously the better pass blocking back, so they're going to put him in the backfield more often than not because he gives a little more protection for Joe. And if he's going to be back there a lot, you're going to have to hand him off the ball just to keep the defense honest. And that's part of the reason that it had been confusing at times, Samaje's role, because every time he was in the backfield, you knew that we were dropping back. It's like those teams that you see, and I think the Steelers are one of them. When Aaron Rodgers goes under center, they're going to run the ball. When he's in shotgun, they're going to throw the ball, and you can't be overly predictable as an offensive unit. All right, let's flip it to the defensive side. First off, do you think Trey Hendrickson's going to play? This is pure speculation.
Sounds like he's a long shot.
Okay.
Reports this morning so far about him are that it's probably a no-go. I think the latest, trying to pull up the exact wording from the latest update here, but quote, a bit of a long shot is the wording that they're using right now. Injured is back there in that Green Bay game, and I think I'm going to be honest with you, like, I don't know that Trey Hendrickson in this pass rush is my biggest concern.
What is then?
the secondary. So you look at what the Steelers have done, and you look at DK Metcalf, and you look at Aaron Rodgers and stuff like that. Like DK Metcalf is averaging 19 yards per reception this year. I think realistically he's the key, right? Because if you look across this depth chart, like Pittsburgh really doesn't have a whole lot offensively that makes you worried. And from a run game perspective, they're almost as bad as the Bengals. And you look at what they've done so far this year in terms of rushing yards, and they're fourth worst in the NFL with 84 yards per game. Aaron Rodgers, quite frankly, isn't doing a whole lot better. I mean, he's bottom 10 in the NFL with 193.8 yards per game. The thing that the Steelers do is they take the ball away and they give themselves short fields. And that's been a bit of an Achilles heel this year so far for the Bengals offense. And so when you're talking about the Bengals defense, it actually starts with the Bengals offense. And that's why I was mentioning Samaje Perine and maintaining the ball and not turning the ball over, is because this Pittsburgh defense has keyed in on turnovers. They're second in the NFL with 10 turnovers this year, 10 turnovers forced. And so that's what they've been doing. They've been taking the ball away. They've been giving it to Aaron Rodgers in this offense with short fields, and they've been capitalizing in that manner. So that's the biggest question for me on defense is the secondary. And that's, you get those big turnovers, or you have a Ryan Rico punt that gets them down deep in their own territory. You can't let DK Metcalf get behind you, because Calvin Austin is out for tonight, and their next leading receiver is Jaylen Warren out of the backfield. And so you talk about the secondary and guarding DK Metcalf. I'm also going to talk out the other side of my mouth and talk about this linebacking crew and having to guard this running back room out of the backfield, because Jaylen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell are their two of their top 5 receivers in tonight's game. And so those are the questions that this defense has to answer is, DK Metcalf is going to beat you deep, but they're certainly not afraid to check it down to Gainwell or to Warren. They have a combined 32 catches on the year. But nobody's really outside of DK Metcalf, nobody's really killing it on this Pittsburgh offense. Jaylen Warren's averaging 3.4 yards per carry. Jaylen Warren's their number 2 receiver with 13 catches for 153 yards. DK Metcalf has a 356 yards. He's got a 200-yard lead over the next leading receiver. So whether it's DJ Turner, whether it's help over top with the safeties, they've got to figure out how to slow down DK Metcalf. And they've got to make sure that they're not giving the ball to the Pittsburgh Steelers with a short field. Those are my 2 main priorities for tonight.
Okay. Expect anything from Shamar? Expecting anything? Any big plays from Shamar?
I do, and you never know, but we saw him come in with a bit of a chip on his shoulder for training camp after the holdout and everything, and he wanted to really come in and prove himself. And at least during training camp, he certainly did that. I feel like he's going to come in with a similar chip. He's going to come in. He just came off of a elongated absence, got injured early on in the season, hasn't had a chance to really show what he can do. Tonight's a great opportunity with an immobile quarterback in Aaron Rodgers for him to truly get after the quarterback and make an impact in this game. And with Trey Hendrickson potentially out, I think he's got to step up, and I think he's going to feel that pressure, and I think he's going to step up to the game.
Do you think there's any pressure on the Pittsburgh Steelers tonight? This is their first time playing on primetime. I'm kind of speculating that Aaron keeping his ear to the media, and he recognizes, as does Mike Tomlin, about, hey, people kind of doubt the Steelers because they really haven't been a contender for nearly a decade, even though they have been competitive every single year. Do you think there's a little more pressure on the Steelers than there is for us?
I don't think so. Because here's the thing, right, is that the expectations for the Steelers were extremely low coming into the season. Like, nobody really thought they were going to win the AFC North. I think they were kind of picked either second or third in the division behind the Ravens. They're outperforming themselves already. And so I think they come in, they play loose. If I'm Mike Tomlin, I'm going in there and I'm saying, hey, let's make the Bengals regret trading for Joe Flacco. Let's show them why it doesn't matter that Andrew Berry is an idiot and traded to an in-division rival mid-season and gave them a quarterback. Let's go pick it off 3 times and send them home and embarrass them in front of their home crowd on national TV. I don't think there's pressure on them. They're 4-1 at this point. They're doing exactly what the Steelers do. We talk about it in baseball, about like the Brewers' magic and how they just find a way to be good every single year, despite the fact that people think they're going to be bad. Well, that's what the Steelers do. Every single year, they find a way to be good, regardless of what the expectations are. You look at their depth chart and you say, okay, well, Jalen Warren is unproven. Kenneth Gainwell got cut from the Eagles. DK Metcalf got shipped off by the Seahawks. You sent away George Pickens. Like, you don't have any weapon. Yet here they are. They're 4-1. Their defense continues to show out every single week. And so, no, I don't think there's any pressure on them, if I'm being honest. I think all the pressure is on the Cincinnati Bengals and a team that was expected to be Super Bowl contenders this year, who's out to a terrible start to the season at 2-4. So, no, I think there's almost zero pressure on the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I think I disagree. I think they I don't know if pressure is the right word, but I think they have an opportunity here to put a dagger in the side of the AFC North by winning this game, because they'd go to 5-1. They have a tough stretch ahead, but if they win this game, they're not only in the driver's seat, they're a few laps ahead of everyone else in the division. And with the Ravens being 1-5, us already losing 1 game to the Steelers, it'd pretty much smell the end of any competition here in the AFC North. So I don't know. I feel like they're maybe pressure.
Yeah, but you also know that you have another chance in 3 weeks where if you let tonight go, you can come back and get it back. And yeah, I look. At the end of the day, it's the NFL, and you're professional athletes. And how much pressure do you truly ever feel in a regular season game? I don't know. My gut tells me probably not a whole lot, unless you're in a position like the Bengals are, where expectations were so much higher than what the reality has been so far. So who knows? Either way, all I know is that whatever the Steelers are feeling, the Bengals absolutely are feeling it. And they're feeling like they have a responsibility to have this team in a position to at least make it worth having the conversation of whether or not Joe Burrow comes back if and when he's ready this year. And I think they have a lot of guys on this team who have a good relationship with Joe, and they want to make sure that they're taking care of business for their leader behind the scenes, even though he's not in the game. I think they want to have a chance to bring Joe back, and I think they want to give Joe a redemption tour. And that only happens if you stay close.
No doubt about it. Yeah, they gotta win this game. I don't like to think that the Bengals have a lot of pressure on. I like to think that they are desperate. And that's a better place to be than putting pressure on them. They're a desperate team that they'll do anything. They'll claw, scratch, and fight their way to win this one. I think you've already alluded to it, but your biggest key of the game is that they've got to not turn the ball over. Correct?
Yeah, don't turn the ball over. Don't give the Steelers short fields. I don't expect the Steelers to have a whole lot of 80-plus yard drives tonight. So keep it. It's got to be one of those like 16-13 games at the end of the night, and it's going to be boring as hell, and you're going to have to fight through it, Reed. But Bengals win 16-13. They keep the Steelers on a short field or on a long field and take care of the ball. Keep it close.
If you were doing the live watch along and the Bengals won 16-13, would you prefer 2 touchdowns or would you prefer a touchdown and 3 field goals?
I think the game's going to lend itself to a touchdown and 3 field goals.
All right. I think that's
it's going to be. I just think it's going to be one of those low-scoring, classic AFC North affairs on a Thursday night football. We talk about the Thursday night unders a lot. You hear about those all the time. I think this is a classic Thursday night under. I don't even know what
it's 44.5.
Yeah, I'm smashing that under.
Ooh.
If I'm being honest.
Ooh, now we're getting betting takes here. We're getting betting takes from
financial
Craig.
Advice here.
Yeah, no financial.
Real quickly, I want to butt in because I got a stat for us to end with. A stat that we're going to end with here. AFC North home teams have won Thursday night football divisional games 9 straight times, dating all the way back to 2015.
That's a heck of a stat. That's a heck of a stat. That's hey, let's do it.
Pittsburgh favored by 4.5.
Oh, move down?
Yep. 4.5 now.
That means that there's some heavy money on the Cincinnati Bengals. Hey, listen, I talk about this often. I look at the lines, and that shouldn't be your only opinion is based off of betting lines, but it can tell you a lot. And the last 3 weeks, when they're 8-point underdogs against the Denver Broncos, like, oh, this doesn't look good. When they're 10 or 11-point underdogs at home against the Lions, we're like, oh, this doesn't look good. When they're 2-touchdown favorites against the Green Bay Packers, we're like, oh, this really doesn't look good. But here, 4-point underdogs on a 4-game losing streak against the best team in the division at home. I like our chances. Chances.
I might be taking the Bengals to cover and the under.
All right. Craig, I'll see you later. Thank you so much for hopping here on the show. We appreciate your time as always. I'll see you later. Bengals watch along starting. What time does the game start tonight? 8:20, 8:15. So we'll be live. All right, so we'll be live about 7:45 right here on Chatterbox Sports. See you, Craig. Thanks, man.
See you, Reed. Thanks. Yeah.
When you started talking there, Stone. It was coming through my headset like 3 times, and it was I don't know, it was a crazy experience. It felt like I was on something that Aaron Rodgers would take for a second there. Which, by the way, I don't know if anyone can spike his tea with some ayahuasca or something like that. Just before the game, just for one day, he's hip with it. He's cool with it. I like some things that Craig said there. Obviously, I'd be willing to bet, and it doesn't make it any less true. But Stone, you've done the Ram Sports Show and the Big Blue Sports Show this year. I've done those, talking to high school coaches. I've talked to college coaches before games, and you talk to analysts before NFL game. And you say, hey, what's the key to the game? And almost without fail, you get the same 3 things. And it's don't turn the ball over, end every drive with a kick, and don't shoot yourself in the foot with penalties. It's those 3 things that they will say about 90% of the time. And the reason that is said isn't because it's some cliche, isn't because it's just the easy thing. It's because it's true. It's because it's true. If you don't turn the ball over, if you don't shoot yourself in the foot with some penalties, you put yourself in a great opportunity to win. And when you're at home, like the Cincinnati Bengals are tonight, playing a division opponent where it always gets a little nasty, especially here in the AFC North, you've got to do everything you can to not put the opposing team in a better position to win. You can't give them short fields. You can't punish your own drives, especially with a backup quarterback. You do those things. You can't shorten their field by defensive penalties. All those things are absolutely true. And I know it's tiring. I know it's a bit trite to hear those answers, but it's the truth. That's how you win football games, is by not turning the ball over. It's by winning. It starts at the line, right? That's the other one. It starts we got to push their line, they've got to push us, all that stuff. I get it. It's trite. It's a bit tiring, but it's true. And that's going to be the key tonight, man. Joe Flacco, when we brought him in, I said that he's going to get sacked a lot. He's going to throw some picks. Hopefully he limits those. Hopefully we get a win here tonight. And we kind of rejuvenate this Cincinnati Bengals fandom, because God knows we need it. God knows we need it. Me and Craig, we started talking a little bit about the gambling side of things. You're going to be down there at Paycor Stadium. You gonna dabble in any bets, or is that going to be on your own show? So we don't want to take it away. You got any bets for tonight's Thursday night football game?
I mean, nothing crazy. I'll be taking the 4.5. No doubt about that.
I can't believe that moved down.
Yeah. I think I feel good about the Bengals winning, but if you think they're going to win, they're giving you 4.5 points. Might as well take it. I think that's probably what I'll do. Beyond that, haven't really looked at any props other than that. Scotty Miller, I'm interested to know what his yards are, because I think Scotty Miller will probably have his fair share of yards in the game. Obviously, no Calvin Austin, as Craig alluded to, and Scotty Miller is a reliable guy, takes those big hits over the middle. Bengals got 2 rookie linebackers, so I don't have it in front of me, but whatever it is, I think Scotty Miller as a prop could potentially be something good there. But yeah, Bengals they cover tonight, and they cover the 4.5, and I think money line's probably a good bet as well.
I got it at 5.5 on my book, which I'll take. So shop that line around if you're going to take the Cincinnati Bengals. Stone, got a teaser for the Stone Shield show coming up here in just a few minutes.
Well, obviously, we'll talk Cincinnati Bengals. We'll preview
Oh,
the
there's a big game tonight.
Yeah, they are going to play tonight, actually.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that on the show. We'll go through the injury report for both teams, some keys to victory stuff, important aspects of the game, similar to what we did here in hour number 1, but obviously I'll have my own twist on it there as well. We'll talk about the Dallas Cowboys and Dak Prescott. I think you make the argument Dak Prescott is playing just as good as anybody in the National Football League at the quarterback position. We'll talk about him. Did they win the Micah Parsons trade? I don't think many people out there think they did. And I'm not necessarily going to say they did, but I think it's certainly working out a little bit better for them than people maybe anticipated. So we'll talk about that. The Toronto Blue Jays, they roll last night. Their bats woke up in a big way. That is now 2-1 in favor of Seattle. We'll talk about that a little bit on the show as well. And we'll kind of go around the NFL and look at all the betting lines, and we'll have some leans on today's show before we get into our best bets of the weekend tomorrow.
All right. Fair enough. Stone Shield Show coming up. People want a baseball talk. The only thing I got for baseball talk right now is I pray that the Toronto Blue Jays beat the Seattle Mariners, because if it's the Dodgers, and I think the Dodgers are going to kind of walk away with that NLCS, if the Dodgers win that series and the Seattle Mariners win that series, I don't know how much I'm going to tune in. 2 West Coast teams. I don't know how the times will be, what time they'll be playing and whatnot. I mean, I assume it'll still be primetime games like 8 o'clock. But I need an East Coast team to keep me relevant. I need an East Coast team to keep me in on it. Plus, I like watching Vladdy Jr. play. All right. Off the bench, we'll be back tomorrow, 10 talking about the Cincinnati Bengals win over the Pittsburgh Steelers. Your favorite in-stadium song that the Bengals play at Paycor Stadium? Putting you on the spot here.
Yeah, you send it every day.
Welcome
or
to
every
the jungle.
game day. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it chills down the spine before kick.
I'm a big For Whom the Bell Tolls guy. For Whom the Bell Tolls, which, if you'll indulge me, I got one little story about the band Metallica. For Whom the Bell Tolls by Metallica. The USSR, Soviet Union, fell, I think it was in 1992. Was it 8? Somewhere, some history, someone better at history. Give me the exact year on that. And when it fell, you know how we christened the Soviet Union that fell? And we brought them into the New World. Russia, we brought them into the New World. We had a big Metallica concert right there in Moscow. That's how we christened them into the New World, which is the most badass thing I've ever heard in my life. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Who Day. Go Bengals. Stone Shield Show coming up.
All right, here we go. Welcome into the Stone Shield Show here on a Thursday. It is game day. Cincinnati Bengals, Pittsburgh Steelers, Thursday night football. And feels like a massive game for Cincinnati as they've obviously dropped 4 consecutive games and have an opportunity here, by the way, to improve to 2-0 in the division. The Bengals, of course, even with Joe Burrow, have struggled relatively immensely in the division over the past few years. Have an opportunity here to go to 2-0, which certainly would be very positive for the Cincinnati Bengals. And I think they've got some things working in their favor. We'll preview the game, obviously, on today's show. We'll roll through the injury reports for both teams. Pittsburgh relatively healthy. They're going to be without Calvin Austin in the game. It's a Pittsburgh passing attack that really is dependent on DK Metcalf. There's not really a ton of options beyond DK Metcalf at that passing position spot for Pittsburgh. And it's a team that struggled to run the football there as well. So if this Cincinnati Bengals defense shows up ready to play and they don't get torched, play similarly to how they did in the first half against Green Bay, I think they could find themselves in a position where it's close late and have an opportunity ultimately to win the game. So we'll preview the game as we always do on, before a Bengals game, right? We always do it. Typically it's on a Friday, but here with a Thursday night game, we will do it here today. Keys to victory, injury reports, things that need to happen for Cincinnati, things to watch for, players to watch for, all that good stuff coming up on today's show. Also, I want to spend some time talking about the Dallas Cowboys. Something that's been really refreshing about doing this show is I get to control exactly what we talk about, and you turn on national TV or sports talk radio, and they're always talking about the Dallas Cowboys, regardless of how well they're doing, the success in which they're having, poor performance, Jerry Jones, Schottenheimer, Prescott, Parsons trade, you name it, they're always talking about the Dallas Cowboys. We haven't really done that on this show, but, I do think it's worth talking about here today because obviously the Micah Parsons trade that went down before the regular season kind of sent shockwaves through the rest of the NFL. And I think most people sat there and said, Dallas is completely idiotic. What are they doing? And I'm not going to sit here and say they won the trade, but I think they do have an opportunity to win the trade. And that, of course, involves Dak Prescott playing at a very, very high level in which he is right now. I've said it on Off the Bench. I don't think there's anybody in the National Football League besides maybe Patrick Mahomes where we can sit there with concrete evidence and say this quarterback is playing better than Dak Prescott. He's playing at an elite level right now, but obviously that defense is just absolutely putrid for the Dallas Cowboys. So we'll spend some time talking about that. If you're new to the show, we do best bets of the weekend on Friday. It's usually 5-6 plays. There's really not a limit. We could do really as many as we would like. Finally had a really good week last week at 4-1, and something that I might introduce a little bit on Thursdays is we'll kind of go through all the spreads right now, talk about what they opened at, what they're at right now, the public money situation, and kind of we'll talk through it together and kind of have our leans on these games as we look to continue to improve on what we're doing with Best Bets of the Weekend. That segment will be our final segment on tomorrow's show. And the Toronto Blue Jays, good baseball game last night. Wasn't a competitive baseball game last night. Mariners, they jump out to a quick 2-0 lead early on Shane Bieber, and you're sitting there going, oh my goodness, this place, this ballpark, it's exploding. And are they really about to take a 3-0 series lead? And then the offense of the Blue Jays, which has been the best offense in Major League Baseball all season, showed up in a big way as they just began stockpiling runs there on the road and really found their way back into this series with a big-time win last night. Vlad Guerrero Jr., that guy's pretty good, and he certainly showed it last night. Had an opportunity to get a cycle. By the way, there's only been one postseason cycle in the history of Major League Baseball, and he got that second double, and, you thought there, especially with the big-time lead, that he would round second base and at least try to get to third. Third base coach gave him the stop sign, and, ultimately it was just another double. But what a game from Vlad Guerrero Jr. In a lot of ways, put the offense on his back. Jimenez, a guy that isn't a power hitter, right? He went yard to kind of tie the game and really get the momentum going for Toronto. But I contend to believe that that's going to be a phenomenal series, and it's going to continue to be a great series, and wouldn't surprise me at all if it went 6 or 7 games. But let's start with the Cincinnati Bengals. As always, appreciate everyone for being here. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Well on our way to 20,000 subscribers here at the channel, here at Chatterbox Sports. Help us out. hit that sub button if you haven't done so already. Give us a follow on social media as well. Follow me, follow the show at @StoneShields_ and at the Stone Shields as far as our Twitter platforms go for this show there as well. And you'll begin to see some more clips go out on Instagram as we work into next week there as well. But let's start with the Cincinnati Bengals. Let's start with the injury report. I think a big storyline in this game is what the heck are you going to do with your offensive line if you're Zach Taylor? Because now you have options. Even going into the year, you didn't really have options. And then, guys get banged up. And last week, you didn't really have options. Well, now you're going to have options because some guys are starting to get more healthy. Dylan Fairchild, he did not play last week against the Green Bay Packers. He was out, but he's been a full participant in practice throughout this week. So he has an opportunity to go. And, of course, he was your guy, your starter at that left guard spot throughout the entirety of the year. Third-round rookie out of Georgia. Some ups, some downs. He's good to go. We'll see if he finds his way back in the lineup. Mike Gesicki, he's on IR, pectoral injury. Going to be out. He's going to miss a good amount of time there at that tight end spot. So you're going to see a lot more Noah Fant. And you're going to see certainly more, Drew Sample out there as well. Hudson, we'll get to him in a second. He has a concussion. He's going to be out. So Noah Fant, a move that Cincinnati made, signing him relatively late there in the offseason. He's going to be called upon to do a lot, especially in the passing game. It's unfortunate, with Gesicki because he really wasn't being utilized enough. You gave him the contract this offseason. He was exceptional for you last year. He was brilliant. A lot of that maybe was Joe Burrow, but you were really looking forward to having another year with him and Joe Burrow, with obviously Higgins and Chase out there as well, and Yoshi. But I don't think. I think it's a knock on Zach Taylor a little bit for not being able to utilize him because he's a great football player, and now he's hurt and he's going to miss some time. So the Bengals are going to be without him at that tight end spot. As I mentioned, Hudson concussion. He scored the touchdown last week, was tremendous, but he is not going to be able to go in this game. Actually, I don't know if they've ruled him out for certain yet, but he did not practice on Monday or Tuesday. Charlie Jones also hasn't practiced. He's listed as questionable for the game with a rib injury. And to be honest with you, I'm ready to, I'm not going to say quit on Charlie Jones, but if he's banged up here, let's sit him down and let's activate Jermaine Burton for this football game. And something we'll touch on a little bit more as well is Yoshi. I was a big fan of Yoshi. Again, no Joe Burrow, so it's a little bit different out there. But he was tremendous for the team last year. I thought he was gonna really improve this year and be that wide receiver 3 for Cincinnati. He's been that guy that's been on the field, but he is not producing whatsoever. Had the 3 drops in the game last week. I'm ready to switch something up. Let's get Mitchell Tinsley in there for more snaps, get him in there as the 3, and let's activate Jermaine Burton, and let's sit down Charlie Jones. Burton, of course, had all the issues last year, the evictions, showing up to practice late, not showing up, sleeping in meetings, just the list kind of went on and on for him. Disastrous rookie campaign. And then all you heard about him this offseason was that, he's taking steps in the right direction. He's matured a little bit. He's becoming a professional a little bit more, but we haven't seen him be active for a game yet to this point, I don't believe. Maybe one, but off the top of my head, I don't remember seeing him run around out there on the football field. And he needs to, I think it's time, right? Let's see what you got, because you haven't gotten anything from Charlie Jones in the return game, and you haven't really gotten anything from Yoshi there as well, and he's supposed to be your wide receiver 3. Let's obviously focus around T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, but I would like to see Burton get an opportunity, and I'm ready for Tinsley to kind of get that opportunity to be that wide receiver 3. Jones is questionable for the game, could perhaps play. Amarius Mims has the ankle. He was a full participant in practice throughout the week. They talked about it at length early in the preseason and during training camp, whereas, the coaching staff kind of sat down with Mims and said, look, you play tackle, you play offensive line, it's the NFL, you're never going to feel good. You're going to be hurt every time you go out there, but you, at 65, 70%, is better than the next guy. And he had to exit the game last week against Green Bay. He's clearly not 100%, but they need him out there, and frankly, they need him to be better than he has been to this point this year. I still think Amarius Mims is a hit, even though, maybe he hasn't been the perfect growth from year 1 to year 2 here. I still think he's going to break the trend, and Cincinnati's finally going to be able to give an offensive lineman in which they drafted a second contract. But he's got to show some improvement, and he's got to show some toughness in this football game, because clearly he's not 100%, and that's a ferocious front for Pittsburgh, and he's got to be ready to go and contribute to winning football here in this game. Lucas Patrick, he's been a full go all week as well. He, of course, had the calf injury Suffered that week 1 against Cleveland. He was brought in late in free agency, and we're all sitting here like, wow, this is the guy we're going to roll out there at right guard. Then immediately he gets hurt, and you have to go elsewhere there as far as that decision goes. He practiced in a limited capacity last week. Now he's a full go. And we'll see. I think that's kind of the biggest storyline here in this game is what is Zach Taylor going to do with his offensive line? Usually he commits to his 5 starters, and those are the guys throughout the game. Typically, when you look at his tenure as a whole, dating back to 2019. Have there been some subtle moves? Yeah. But is this a situation where he rolls out a group the first drive of the first quarter and he goes, okay, well, that didn't work. Let's tinker here. Let's move this guy around. Let's do this. Let's do that. I'm interested to see how he handles it because he's got some answers now. In the past few weeks and really going into the season, there wasn't a ton of answers in which he had. Well, now you got a situation where Lucas Patrick is back and Dylan Fairchild's back. Where are you going to go with the starting offensive line that you had in week 1 against Cleveland, or are those two guys going to go? Are you going to sit down Jalen Rivers, who nobody expected to really play this year and has been a starter for you now for several weeks, your 5th-round pick out of Miami? Dalton Reisner, you brought him in, right? And, he was he ended up playing in the Cleveland game when Patrick got hurt. And, then he was not really playing, and then he was forced into duty last week when he had the Fairchild injury. And he played well in the second half. Do you go with him? Do you go with the rookie? Do you start 2 rookies? Right? You've got all kinds of questions and options here at this point along the offensive line. I'm fascinated to see what Zach Taylor does, if he's going to stick to the same 5 all game or if he's going to rotate guys in and out. And lastly for Cincinnati is Shamar Stewart. Has the ankle. We haven't seen him since week 2 against Jacksonville. He was a full participant in practice. Al Golden said he is good to go. And this is a huge game for Shamar Stewart. Unfortunately, he's missed the time, and this is only going to be his 3rd NFL game, so there's still going to be some, rookie moments from him, right, and some bumps and bruises along the way, but they're going to ask him to do a lot in this game, especially if Trey Hendrickson isn't able to go. They're going to have him out on the field for more snaps than probably he's used to, and you got to question what that gas tank is like since he's been hurt. If he's still going to be able to be productive out there for a lot of snaps, but his plate's going to be full tonight. They're going to be asking him to do a lot because getting pass rush under Aaron Rodgers in this game is absolutely critical for Cincinnati. Right? Aaron Rodgers, he's had a different style of play. He's adapted beautifully to playing at this age. When he's 40, 41 years of age, he can't play the same way he once did. He's got to change. The ball's coming out of his hand quickly. He's taking the completions when they're there. They're not necessarily forcing the football down the football field. This is a team that doesn't have much of a run game either. And besides DK Metcalf, what's his receiving core? It ain't great. He's played exceptional football. And if you give him an opportunity to sit back there and have time, he's going to dime you up. All right, I don't care if he's throwing to Scotty Miller and Ben Skoranek and these guys are just like, what are they doing? I don't care. If you give him time, he's going to sit back there and dime you up. And this is a Bengals team for 3-4 years now that can't apply pressure on the quarterback when it's not Trey Hendrickson. And even when, we just saw it in the second half last week. You're sitting there going, oh, yeah, we got this 4-man rush going, right? We're not necessarily getting home on Jordan Love here, but we're making him uncomfortable, making him escape the pocket, use his legs. And then the second half, no Trey Hendrickson, and you got nothing. And we'll see if Hendrickson goes in the game. We had the stat yesterday. Hendrickson, since he has been here in 2021, has missed 1 game. He's missed 2 games, but the one they rested all their starters the final week of the season. He's missed 1 game. This dude's tough as nails, and he loves going out there and competing with his teammates. I believe, and maybe this is me, being a little too, speculating a little bit too much. But I think if he had a long-term contract here in Cincinnati, if they gave him that deal that he was after and he wasn't just on a 1-year deal, I think he's playing tonight. To be honest. And I don't know if he's necessarily healthy enough to play. But prime time, Pittsburgh, right? If he had that deal, he would be out there. Doesn't have the deal, we'll see if he's out there. But I'm not questioning the toughness at all of Trey Hendrickson. But this is something we speculated when the deal didn't go down. We sat there and said, well, what's one of the best things about Trey Hendrickson, regardless of the fact of him getting sacks? And we sat there and said, well, he's always available, and he plays through injury, and he's tough. And we sat there and said, well, is he going to play through that injury? Is he going to show his toughness as much, not having the security beyond this year? And there was question marks around that. Well, now we're going to find out. Because I don't know all the details. Like, he's banged up. It's the hip injury, right? I mean, it's relatively serious, and a lot of guys wouldn't play. But something tells me if he had a long-term deal, he would be out there Thursday Night Football against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So we'll see. Beyond Trey Hendrickson, things are pretty promising from an injury perspective for the Cincinnati Bengals. And then shifting over to the Pittsburgh side of things, this is a real team. They've had a roster in place for quite some time, but obviously ever since Roethlisberger retired, they haven't had answers at the quarterback position. And I sat here on this show and said, guess what? They're going to have answers here at the quarterback position. Is Rodgers going to go win an MVP at this age? No, absolutely not. But can he play winning football if he's upright? You betcha. And that's what he's doing. He's been tremendous. He's not throwing for 300 yards and 5 touchdowns. Is he leaning on his defense? Yeah, but this is a wise veteran guy, and he understands that this defense, most of their money is allocated towards the defensive side of the ball. It's the Pittsburgh Steelers, after all. That's how they win, right? When they're getting turnovers, he's capitalizing. They have the short fields, he goes down and scores. He doesn't make the critical mistake. What, he only has 3 picks this year? That's just typical Aaron Rodgers, and he's such a smart, cerebral guy when it comes to playing football. And, he's making all the right decisions out there, and, they're winning ball games. DK Metcalf, they gave him an off day. Tomlin does this a lot with his veteran guys. He gives them rest days early in the week. He's got a good feel for, what to do with his players here at this point. Metcalf's fine. Same with Ramsey, right? He had a rest day. Rodgers as well. Calvin Austin's their guy that's been ruled out. And then Miles Killebrew as well, which is a bit of a noteworthy thing there as well for Cincinnati. Deshaun Elliott, their safety, is questionable. I would actually, he did not, as I look at this here, he did not practice on Wednesday, so they could be without Deshaun Elliott, who could potentially be a big loss for them. Again, just rest for TJ Watt. So, relatively speaking, both these teams are healthy. Obviously, the Bengals are without 2 of their best players, potentially. Right, Joe Burrow's out, and we'll see about Trey Hendrickson. But beyond that, it's not like he had a ton of guys banged up. And obviously the Bengals, as we mentioned, have guys coming back on the offensive line. But the biggest storyline for me in this game is that offensive line. And you could probably say this each and every week with Joe Flacco. People point to, Zach Taylor and, what he did or didn't do in the first half and the run game. Let's not overcomplicate things. Right? They tried to run the football because they needed to in the first half against Green Bay. Their quarterback got there on a Tuesday, so if you're going to sit back there and just cut it loose, that would be stupidity. Obviously, we would have liked to see a little bit more creativity in the run game from Zach. We didn't get that, but he had to try to establish the run early. But when they were trying to throw the ball, Flacco was either under center, dropping back, or catching the snap, and they were on him right here, right now, and he can't move. So that's a problem, right? And this front, for Pittsburgh, not going to say it's better than Green Bay because I think they've got a really good front, but they got some dudes now. Cam Hayward, he can still play. TJ Watt, he's getting after you. And guess what? Nick Herbig, he has more pressures this year than TJ Watt. He's a tremendous player. Highsmith, the linebacker, he's great too. Oh, we didn't even mention Patrick Queen. Oh, by the way, Derek Harmon. That's going to be interesting. I've got my eye closely on Derek Harmon. Harmon, of course, their first-round pick out of Oregon. There was many people around the team that said the Bengals should take Derek Harmon in the draft. They obviously did not do that. And there was also a lot of people predicting that they would as well, and they did not. So that could be interesting here if, Derek Harmon outplays Shamar Stewart in this football game. I've Giddy's got more help around him with the guys that I just rattled off. But close eye on Derek Harmon and how he performs today. Keanu Benton there in the middle, big dog in the middle. Their nose tackle, he's a big dude. He's a good run stopper. And then you just take a look at the secondary, which if you had to point to the weakest part of the Steelers defense, obviously it is their secondary. But take a look at some of these names. Remember Darius Slay? Oh, yeah, he plays for Pittsburgh now these days. Jabril Peppers, he was supposed to be this great player. Didn't really do much in New England, but has kind of found himself a little bit here in Pittsburgh. And then you got Jalen Ramsey, who's got a position switch, and he's more of a nickel now, but he still flies around, makes plays, delivers big hits. He's banged up, but he's going to play in the game. We mentioned Elliott's questionable. He hasn't practiced. We'll see. And then Joey Porter Jr. playing for them as well. He's a handsy guy. Look, he's a talented player, but you put him on an island with Jamar Chase, and that's get your popcorn out because Chase is going to have a big day if that's the case. But they just got dudes all over the place on defense. And they're going to be after Joe Flacco in this game. And we'll see if the Bengals offensive line can hold up. We talked about it at length. What are you going to do? Which guys are you going to deploy? What rotations are you going to have? Are you going to stick with the same 5 guys? Very fascinated to see how they handle that situation. And then when you're talking about a keys to victory perspective, right, you can rattle off all the same things that you said last week. Right? Again, it ain't Joe Burrow out there. And I think, a lot of us are optimistic about what we saw from Joe Flacco. But remember, the Bengals lost the game last week, had an opportunity there late to kind of get back into the ball game, but they checked off a lot of boxes when it came to what they needed to do, and they still lost. Meaning what? Win the turnover battle, 1-0, they won. Be disciplined, only 3 penalties, right? That's tremendous. If you have a game where you're turning the football over at an absurd rate or you're getting penalized at an absurd rate, you're going to lose. That's just the reality of the situation. You have to be so buttoned up with now your third quarterback if you want to go out there and beat a team that only has 1 loss. And that's what Cincinnati needs to do. So those things need to obviously be cleaned up. The run game. I mean, in some ways it felt better last week, but when you take a look at the stats, it's like, well, I mean, how much better really was it? Pittsburgh's going to be a hard team to run the football on. That's just the reality of the situation. I think it was 9 carries for Chase Brown and 6 for Samaje Perine. I personally would like to see it be more of a 50-50 split here in this game for Cincinnati. And we talked about this on Off the Bench, but just the type of back that Samaje Perine is compared to the type of back that Chase Brown is. This was supposed to be a year where Chase Brown really became a nationally known running back. And unfortunately for him, his star quarterback got hurt. And that changes things a lot because the trajectory of the offense completely changed. And you started to ask Chase Brown to do more of the stuff that he isn't the best at. And that's just, put your head down and run in between the tackles. Which he can do when you have, the threat of a play action game or a screen game or downfield shots to Jamar and T. But based on where this offense is right now, it's just kind of unfair to ask him to do that because he's not really that type of back. I still think he's got a really bright future, and when Joe Burrow comes back, either at the end of this year or next year, he's going to be a really good running back for this team. But they just need a different kind of style out of the position here at this point. When the Bengals signed Samaje Perine, the question for me was, all right, what kind of juice does he have? Has he lost a step? How does he look? And he looks good, in my opinion. I think he looks really solid out there. He can still obviously block. That's another reason. Chase Brown's gotten better at that. But, Perine, what he can do from a blocking perspective, you feel more comfortable with an immobile quarterback in Joe Flacco. And just the contact that he's got to fight through at the line of scrimmage. These offensive linemen, they're not creating gaping holes by any stretch of the imagination. You're going to have to run through some arm tackles there at the line of scrimmage, and you feel better about Samaje Perine doing that than Chase Brown. So I would like to see this more of a 50-50 split. All right, kind of what you saw at the beginning of last year with Zach Moss and Chase Brown. I'm not comparing Zach Moss to Samaje Perine, but just kind of, it kind of feels like, okay, it's 2 guys back there and not just the 1 guy. And, Chase Brown, they asked him to do a lot, and he was out there for basically all the snaps there towards the end of the year last year for Cincinnati. He was doing a tremendous job. But you see it quickly with running backs. I mean, you have a season where you undergo so much damage and get so much work and so many carries and so active in the passing game as well. It's hard to, bounce back and have that same kind of, workload the following year. You're looking at Saquon Barkley as a perfect example. Think about how much Philadelphia asked him to do last year and how great he was. Well, this year he's taken a step back because he just took so much punishment last year, and he just, isn't able to, when you're in a running back position, you're getting in car crashes each and every play. It's hard to sustain that, right? And even a guy like Christian McCaffrey, who has big years and back-to-back years, but I mean, he gets hurt a lot, right? So, that's just kind of the nature of the running back position. I would like to see them get back to Samaje Perine a little bit more in this football game. And, as I mentioned, you're going to have to get some pressure on Aaron Rodgers in this game, right? He's 40-plus years of age, but if you sit back there and give him a clean pocket, I don't care if he's throwing to me and you, he'll find completions. All right, he's that accurate with the football, and he's that smart, and he just knows what the defense is doing. All right, and if you don't get any pressure on him, it's going to be an issue. That's why Shamar Stewart is such a big factor in this football game. And then Flacco's got to play like he did in the second half. I mean, he played. People are out there like, it was fine. Now, what more could you expect for Joe Flacco in the second half against Green Bay? I mean, he was borderline perfect, I thought. I mean, he was getting the ball out quick, wasn't taking sacks, wasn't putting the ball in harm's way, was getting it to the 2 best players on your team. Now with Joe Burrow out, T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. I mean, if he does that in this game against a different style of defense, you're going to be in a good spot to go out there and win. And special teams as well. Again, when you're on your second or third quarterback, all the little things that you do are magnified. Right? You can't afford to go out there and shank a few punts, right, if you're Ryan Rico. You can't afford to miss a kick inside 45 yards if you're Evan McPherson. And I'm interested to see how McPherson performs in this game. He missed the 2 last week, but nobody's banging on him for that. The one was a 67-yarder, would have been an NFL record, so not going to critique him there. And the other one was a 57-yarder, still a long kick. And even if he makes it, it's like he needed an onside kick. So I'm not hitting the panic button with Evan McPherson. Prior to those kicks, he was tremendous, has been tremendous this year for Cincinnati. But Craig Sandlin kind of alluded to this earlier. It feels like, field goals are going to be really important in this game. Like if you get the ball past midfield, are you making the field goal, right? And obviously Boswell, Pittsburgh's guy, he just doesn't miss against the Bengals. He literally is seemingly always automatic. That guy's exceptional against the Bengals. So he's going to make his kicks in this game. McPherson is going to play a big role in this game there as well. Because against this defense, even if you're moving the football, they're going to get some stops in their side of the field. And you're going to have to roll them out there. Zach Taylor, of course, going to have opportunities to be aggressive on fourth down. But I think McPherson's going to play a really big factor in this game. And so is Boswell. And Boswell against the Bengals, he just doesn't miss. So McPherson needs to be ready to go and ready to execute some big-time kicks in the game there as well. And I do think there's some stuff you can exploit. If the offensive line can hold up, you can attack those guys in the secondary, right? I mean, you got Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and I think people kind of, over the course of the past few weeks, are kind of, are so down on the Bengals and are like, they can't get the ball to their playmakers or whatever. T. Higgins and Jamar Chase in the second half against Green Bay let everybody know just how good they are, right? That was kind of a statement to not only the fan base, but just people nationally in the NFL, like, oh, yeah, that's why they paid Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, because they're really, really good. So if the offensive line can hold up, I think Joe Flacco can have an opportunity to pick on some of those secondary guys for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But, the line was 5.5. I believe it's at 4.5 now. We had the stat at the very end of Off the Bench. AFC North teams have won Thursday Night Football divisional games, home teams, 9 straight times. That dates all the way back to 2015. So in this division, Thursday Night Football at home, typically they win. And I'm looking for that trend to continue here for Cincinnati because, I just think they're gonna find a way. I mean, you lose 5 games in a row in this league. I don't care who your quarterback is. I don't care, what division you play in. You lose 5 games in a row at any point in the NFL, you don't belong in the playoffs. You don't belong to be a playoff contender. But if you snap that streak and you beat Pittsburgh tonight, and you look at your schedule, the Bears are a little bit better than maybe I thought, but the Jets are obviously horrible. You have an opportunity to pick up 2 more wins going into the bye. Next thing you know, you got some momentum. Next thing you know, you see Joe Burrow in there. He's doing some toe workouts. He might be coming back. And the whole season has a chance to head back in the right direction. But it's a short week against a really good football team and a really good coach. And, in this spot, what do people always say on Thursday Night Football? Yeah, just go with the better coach and the better quarterback. I've defended Zach Taylor a long time. Better coach, check goes to Pittsburgh. Better quarterback, check goes to Pittsburgh. We'll see. Big game tonight in the jungle. Whiteout. Looking forward to it. I think the Bengals win. I think it's a low-scoring game. And I think they still stay disciplined. I think Joe Flacco protects the football, and they do enough to preserve this season here at this point. All right, let's talk Dallas Cowboys here on today's show. So that organization, man, was once a very proud organization, right? When you think about Troy Aikman and Emmitt Smith and Michael Irvin and winning world championships left and right. And then really for the majority of my life, and I've never really been able to figure it out, I get it. It's the Cowboys, it's the star, it's the brand, it's Jerry Jones, it's this, AT&T Stadium, whatever. But, I mean, they've had really good quarterback play in my life with Tony Romo and Dak Prescott, and they just have been so fraudulent each and every step of the way. They make head-scratching decisions. Very similar, honestly, to the Cincinnati Bengals in a lot of ways. I think there are a lot of parallels, actually, with the Cowboys and the Bengals as an organization. It's just that everybody talks about the Cowboys and nobody really talks about the Cincinnati Bengals. But they made, a big move, obviously, right before the regular season. There's always drama with their guys and their contracts, right? Remember Dak Prescott when he got his big deal? Yeah, that was signed the day of their first game last year. And CeeDee Lamb, they weren't paying him, and that was just so dramatic and such a long, drawn-out process. And the same thing was going here with Micah Parsons. And it was my way of thinking that, it's just this is what they do, and, ultimately they'll figure it out, and it'll be ugly, but they'll get it done, and then they'll move on, right? Because that's just kind of what the Dallas Cowboys do. But this year was a little bit different. They decided that, you know what, they're going to make a move. And they traded him. They got a haul from the Green Bay Packers. The Packers, I thought, were a Super Bowl contender without him. And that was kind of Green Bay kind of pushing all their chips there forward and saying, yep, our time is now. We're going to go get a world championship here. And, people ripped it apart. Cowboys fans were in shambles. What's Jerry doing? He's a great player. You could argue he's the best defensive player in the league, and you just traded him away. And, you look at how things have gone this year, and it's been better than what, certainly I expected. And I think Brian Schottenheimer deserves a lot of credit, right? Think about that. People were banging on Jerry Jones for, what kind of coaching search was that? They interview a few randos, and you're like, what are you doing? And then you give it to Schottenheimer, who had been with the team for a few years. And this was a guy that hadn't gotten a head coach interview in like 10, 15 years, like literally something absurd. And you give him the opportunity, and then ultimately you give him the job. And I'll be honest, I didn't know much about Schottenheimer. I knew that he had some ties with Peyton Manning and what they did in Denver, and he certainly had some ties with Pete Carroll and what they did in Seattle. But, I didn't know much about him. And then he takes the podium, and you go, oh, this guy, he's got his head screwed on properly. He knows how to handle himself in front of the media. He says all the right things. He seems like a good leader. And you're like, yeah, let's give him a chance and see what happens. And what they've been able to do offensively this year is incredible. Honestly. And you look at what they have. CeeDee Lamb early in the year, he had that awful game where he basically lost them the game with the drops that he had. I don't remember if that was their first game or their second game, but it was early in the year. And then he gets hurt. And then you're looking at their wide receiver room, and you're like, yeah, they'd made the trade for George Pickens. But beyond that, you got Tolbert, and you got Ferguson, this tight end. And you got Kevontae Turpin, he's really fast, but he's more of just a gadget guy. And you're thinking, like, how in the world are you going to be able to do this? Dak Prescott's coming off injury. And, you lose, Rico Dowdle. You let him walk. He goes to Carolina. And then you sign Javonte Williams, who people were high on him at the beginning of his career at Denver. And then he just kind of fell off a little bit there. And you're kind of wondering, like, how in the world are they going to do this thing? And this is one of the best offenses in the National Football League. And it's definitely one of the best passing attacks in the National Football League. I think you could make the argument that Dak Prescott is playing just as good at the quarterback position as anyone else, right? And, we talked about this earlier in the week on this show, like the MVP award, right? They don't give it to the most valuable player. They give it to the most valuable player on the best team. Or you could even argue the quarterback of the best team is kind of how the award goes. I thought Joe Burrow last year clearly was the most valuable player in the NFL. And I think Dak Prescott right now is clearly the most valuable player in the NFL for the heights in which he's been able to take this Dallas Cowboys offense. And I get they just lost to Carolina, but they scored points. This is a team that's scoring 30-plus points a game, right? This is a coach in Schottenheimer who people thought it was the dumbest decision ever, and he's calling the plays here, and he's doing a tremendous job there as well. They've got some creative wrinkles into their offense. And this is an offensive line, by the way, that's kind of been rebuilt for the Dallas Cowboys. But at the same time, they're still losing football games. And we sit here and we evaluate this trade with Micah Parsons, and I'm not going to sit here and say Dallas won the trade. But I think they have an opportunity to do so because this is a team that, for the most part, have made some good decisions drafting, particularly on the offensive side of the ball and particularly with the offensive line. They've made some mistakes defensively, right? Defensive tackle has been a horrible position for Dallas that they've drafted. And they're kind of handcuffed a little bit with what they have at their cornerback spots because they're paying a ton of money to Diggs and Bland, and those guys stink, right? So, that certainly is an issue there as well. But we see it all the time in this league. If you have a good draft or certainly two good drafts in a row, you can really change the course of where you're at. And the Dallas Cowboys are going to have an opportunity to do that. From a personnel perspective, McClay, their personnel guy, he knows what he's doing. Jerry obviously meddles way too much, and that is a bit of an issue for them. But if they can hit on these first-round picks, they could be a team to really be a force to be reckoned with over the course of the next few years. Now, the only reason why I won't sit here and say, 100% Dallas Cowboys and Dak Prescott and Jerry Jones have won this deal is because you don't know how long Dak Prescott is going to be able to sustain this level of play. Because he's 32 years of age right now. And it's like, well, it might take it another year. So then you're looking at him 34, and how's he going to be playing? Are you a little bit too late? Then do you need to draft a quarterback? But if they can hit on this thing this year with those draft picks that they got from Green Bay, and, of course, their own draft pick there as well, and hit on a bunch of guys, right? Maybe another skill guy on offense, and certainly need to help stabilize that defense because that defense is awful. They can't stop the run. They can't get off the field on third down. They can't stop the pass. They can't do anything, right? They can't tackle, right? But if they can hit on that draft next year, we might be sitting here going, oh, wow, the Dallas Cowboys made an incredible move here by getting rid of Micah Parsons, getting some youth around Dak Prescott, and he's still playing at a high level. The only concern that you have is that did you make it a little bit late, right? Are you in a spot where Dak can't play at this level for enough years, right? Is Dak going to take a step back next year? But, I mean, the way he's playing right now is unbelievable. I am just incredibly impressed with the way Prescott is playing, and he's moving around more, too. You know, Dak was always like, he's a pocket passer, right, and he needs a run game, and he needs great help around him. And that's certainly, some of the stuff that was true early in his career. But, I mean, he's lost some weight. He's ripped now, and he's moving around in the pocket. I mean, his movement within the pocket is incredible. He's escaping outside of the pocket. He keeps his eyes downfield. He's limiting his mistakes, limiting the turnovers, and that's really helped Dallas out a lot. Now, are they a playoff team with that defense? No, they're not. Right? I mean, again, they just lost to Carolina. I understand these things. But, people are sitting there ripping them apart saying it was the dumbest trade of all time. Well, if they hit on those picks and Prescott continues to play at this level, it might be a genius move. It might be a genius move because even if they had Micah Parsons, is this team a playoff team, right? Micah Parsons drastically improves their defense, but they're not a top-of-the-line defense. Maybe they're an average defense instead of a bad defense, but I even have my questions on whether or not that's the case as well. But Prescott playing at a tremendously high level, all right? Jerry Jones, of course, is going to continue to meddle, and that probably will hold them back. Right, I mean, the coordinator move, I mean, I'm pretty sure I don't know, but my gut tells me that he was the one that hired Eberflus there as the DC, right? That wasn't a Schottenheimer hire. That was, oh, hey, Brian, we're going to be bringing him in as the DC, and maybe that's why they hired Schottenheimer instead of one of the sexier hires in the head coaching cycle because Jerry was going to meddle, and Schottenheimer was like, well, I haven't had an opportunity to be a head coach, so I guess I'll let that, happen. But, I mean, he seems like, how is he going to keep his job, right? At this rate, he seems like he is a one and done. And that certainly is a bit of an issue. But I look at what the Cowboys have had. People pick apart Dak Prescott. Obviously, he's struggled in the playoffs. But you look at what they've had at the quarterback position with Tony Romo and Dak Prescott here, and you're like, this is 20 years of really, really good quarterback play for Dallas, right? It's not Green Bay, with Favre and Rodgers and Love. But it might be the next best thing, going from Romo to Prescott. And then it hasn't resulted in any playoff success. And, until Dak has that, the narrative isn't going to change on him, right? And no matter how good that he plays. By the way, there have been some positive playoff games from Dak Prescott, but, beating Brady when he's 50 years old and against Tampa team that was spiraling. That was a good game, but, people don't really talk about that, right? He had another good game there as well in the postseason, but people talk about, the Packer game when, Aaron Rodgers had to throw down the sideline. Dak played great in that game. Rodgers was just better and they lose. But people think about the Niners games and the recent Green Bay games of them just getting absolutely mopped. And then people were like, well, he can't play in the playoffs. And until he plays well in the playoffs, their narrative is not going to change on Dak Prescott. But I just thought it was very interesting. With this trade and people acting like, oh, it was the worst trade of all time, there's a chance that this could actually go in Dallas' favor and Dak Prescott really playing at a tremendous level right now. All right, let's do this with these betting lines. We haven't done this segment before on the show. We'll see how it goes. We're going to go through all the games. We're going to talk about where the line's at right now, where it's going, what it opened at, what the public money is. And, we have the one gambling segment a week, the best bets of the weekend, but that isn't really – that's just me, going out there and saying the picks that I like and the rationale behind it. We don't really break down exactly what the lines and whatnot are telling us. So let's start. We'll actually skip over what the heck. We'll start with what we had tonight, obviously. The Cincinnati Bengals and the Pittsburgh Steelers here. Opened – at 4.5, it was at 5.5. I think right now it's at 4.5, depending on where you look. That feels about right to me, to be honest with you. It needs to be more than a field goal game, considering what Cincinnati has done over the course of the past few weeks, and it's very 50-50. Public, what I'm looking at right now says 51% on Cincinnati, 49% on Pittsburgh. That's positive, right? It's not a situation where it's like 80% of the money is on the Bengals and you're like, oh boy, here we go. But yeah, I'm leaning towards the Cincinnati Bengals in this game. I think money line is a great bet. I think there's definitely some value there, right? Plus 206, what I'm looking at right here. I'll probably stay away from that and just take the points. But I think that is, that's the side tonight. And that's me, taking this shirt off, covering up this logo here, and being like, just evaluating this from a gambling perspective. I like Cincinnati a lot in this game. I really do. I mentioned on off the bench, Scotty Miller. I'm interested to know what his receiving yards are because I think I like the over on that. Well, Reed and I looked actually after the show, and one of the books was actually not even offering it. So I don't know if that has changed yet from then to now, but certainly think that's very interesting. Whenever you have a bet like that you like, and then you look and the book's not even offering it, you sit there and you go, oh yeah, that's why I like the bet, because it's a really good bet. We'll see if that changes throughout the course of the afternoon and into the evening. The London game, the international game this week, the Los Angeles Rams, Jacksonville Jaguars. That opened at 3.5. Right now it's 3 in favor of Los Angeles. Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence, they've always played well over there. That's kind of like their second home, right? Remember when the NFL first started doing the international games, it was always like, we'll send Jacksonville over there and see what they can do. Now, obviously, it's most of the teams are going over there, right? But I don't know. I had Jacksonville in my power rankings a couple of weeks ago. It's hard for me to convince myself that they're a playoff team. I believe in Cohen. I think that was the right hire. I like some of the things they're doing offensively, but at the end of the day, they make too many mistakes. They had opportunities in that game against Seattle last week, and that's a really good Seattle defense, a unit that nobody is talking about. I mean, Seattle's a really good football team, and they're not getting enough love for that. But like I said, they make too many mistakes. They're not disciplined enough. And Trevor Lawrence, sometimes he'll be like, oh, yeah, that's the number 1 overall pick. And then sometimes he'll be like, how is this guy starting? Like, the consistency there with Lawrence hasn't been where it needs to be at this stage of the career. Mind you, now he ain't on a rookie deal. He's making that big boy money now, and he still makes some head-scratching moves. They've got some drop issues. Brian Thomas Jr., we've been really high on him. Supposed to be that next great, LSU wide receiver. I still have belief he can be, but he's not catching the football at a rate in which he needs to at this point. So that game's interesting. That's a great game. 2-4-2 teams. International game, the Rams, I viewed them as a team that was going to go to the NFC Championship game. That was my prediction for the Rams. And, it's like scoring 17 points against that Baltimore defense, a unit where everybody's dropping 30, 40 points on them. They only score 17. I get Nakua's hurt. But you just have some question marks there. I think they should be playing better than they are right now. But that's a tremendous game. I don't really have a lean. I just said I was going to do leans on all these. Jags, Rams, I don't really have one at this point. If you're making me pick, I guess I'll go with the Los Angeles Rams and the favored team. But I certainly don't feel great about that here at this point. Next game here is the Bears and the Saints. Open at 5.5. It's at 4.5 now. 63% of the public money is on New Orleans. It's a 1 o'clock game. That ratio concerns me a little bit, but I would probably lean towards New Orleans in this game. I came into the year saying that the Saints are the worst team in football. I don't believe that's the case. Spencer Rattler, look, is he a long-term starter for him? No, but I think there's a lot of people that thought that he would be benched right now for the rookie, and he has not been. Tyler Shuck. As he continues to go out there, they're not winning a ton of games, and you look at his record as a starter, it's horrible. He's won like 2 games, I think. But, he's playing fine, and he kind of looks like one of the best 32 quarterbacks on the planet, to be honest with you. I think that's why you haven't seen Kellen Moore make the move yet. The Saints are still bad. Don't kid yourself. They're still a bad team. But this Bears team, I'm not going to say they got a lucky win against the Commanders, but, they're not the more talented team there. But credit to them. They played well in the elements and were able to win that game, but this kind of feels like a letdown game here for Chicago, despite the fact that it is at home. I would lean towards New Orleans in this game. And here's a stinker. Miami and Cleveland, matchup of 2 1-5 teams. And Cleveland's 2.5-point favorites in this game, and 75% of the public money is on the Miami Dolphins. And this is interesting because if you ask me, I'd say, oh yeah, I take the Dolphins, and then you look at that and you go, oh, never mind, I'll take the Cleveland Browns here in this game. That Browns defense is good. We've said this for years now. It just kind of shows you how dysfunctional they are as an organization. Imagine if they still had Baker Mayfield. This would probably be a playoff team, but they made that mistake. They continue to make mistake after mistake after mistake at the quarterback position. Their latest one, of course, involved trading Joe Flacco to the Cincinnati Bengals, and we all know Mike Tomlin was not thrilled about that. But, Gabriel, we talked about it, when he was named the starter. Wasn't expecting a lot. He hasn't been horrible, but it's like, okay, like you still need a quarterback. He isn't the guy. Feels like only a matter of time before Shador gets an opportunity. If he can be a little bit more mature, some of the antics of Shador have really made you scratch your head. It's like, brother, you're a third-string quarterback in Cleveland, and you're out here acting like a clown. Might want to get your head on screwed on a little bit more properly if you want to have an opportunity here. I think he's going to get an opportunity at some point. It's not this week. One of those lines where you're like, I don't get it, but Vegas clearly knows something. That defense is good. I'll take Cleveland minus 2.5 in this football game. We'll see if that works its way into one of our best bets of the weekend coming up tomorrow. Chiefs-Raiders. Chiefs look good. Chiefs look really, really good. It opened at 12.5. Looks like it's 11.5 right now. I would be taking the Chiefs here in this spot. It's like beating a dead horse here, but I'm going to continue to say it. Tom Brady. Not sure what he's doing. Had an opportunity there with Sam Darnold. He swung and missed and took Geno Smith. And unfortunately, that might cost Pete Carroll his job, to be completely honest with you. And, I hope it doesn't cost Chip Kelly his job because, Chip Kelly did tremendous stuff at Ohio State last year. He would be so good with Sam Darnold, but he's got a guy in Geno Smith that doesn't see the field well, throws the football to the other team. And, it doesn't look like he has the confidence of his teammates either. The Chiefs are playing great football. I had them all the way up at number 4 in my power rankings. Yeah, they're 3-3. They own the Las Vegas Raiders. The number is obviously a big one, but if you're making me pick, I'd probably take Kansas City in that game. How about this? Philadelphia Eagles and the Minnesota Vikings. That is now down to a 1.5-point spread in favor of Philadelphia on the road at Minneapolis. 60% of the public money is on the Eagles. 40% obviously on the Minnesota Vikings. That's a tough place to play. The Bengals found out firsthand a few weeks ago into that environment, into that stadium. It's hard to imagine Philadelphia losing 3 games in a row, right? You had the Denver loss, and of course on Thursday nights you lose to Jackson Dart and the Giants. Now you have the mini bye, right? The extra time to prepare. O'Connell's a great coach, and I think they have the coaching advantage in this game, but Jalen Hurts is going to find a way to win this game. Probably would just take a money line and not risk the minus 1.5, but I think the Eagles bounce back and win in this game. Kind of an interesting line here. Carolina only a 1.5 point favorites against the Jets. This is a complete stay away game. Jets are horrible. They're putrid. They're 0-6. They're downright awful. 63% of the money is on the Carolina Panthers at minus 1.5. Carolina, they're somehow 3-3. Like, you look up and you're like, how in the world is that possible? Canales, I don't really believe in him, but you got to give him credit. Bryce Young, it's a roller coaster with him. It was, clearly the number 1 pick. And then he gets there, it's like, oh, this guy might be a bust. Oh, he might be showing some stuff here. Oh, no, he got benched. Oh, my goodness, he looks like he's the number 1 overall pick. He's tremendous. Oh, wait, now he's throwing the football to the other team. I mean, it's just literally up and down for Bryce Young. Made some mistakes in the game against Dallas. Ultimately was good enough to win. They've got a great ground game right now with Rico Dowdle. I mean, he's running his rear end off at this point. It's really incredible what he's been able to do. It's a stay-away game. It's an ugly game. Maybe the Jets get their first win. But, if Carolina can win this game, I think you begin to start having the conversation, not that they're good, not that they're a playoff team, but maybe they're not the same old Carolina. They lose to the Jets. Would anybody be surprised? No. Stinker of a football game. That's on at 1 o'clock. Patriots and Titans. 7-point spread in favor of New England on the road. Mike Vrabel goes back to Tennessee. 75% of the public money is on the Patriots. Brian Callahan, of course, just fired by the Tennessee Titans. And you usually get one of two things when that happens. You get the interim guy in there and your team plays really, really well, or your team gets even worse. I don't know what they're going to do in this spot. It's a stay-away game. The Patriots are going to win this game, right? Vrabel's not going back to Nashville and losing. That ain't going to happen. Big number there with 7. Maybe you get more of a Tennessee team with some more spunk and they go out and compete, but it is certainly interesting that 75% of the money is on New England. Giants and Broncos. This appears to be one of those sucker bets, right? You're sitting there going, oh my goodness, you're giving Jackson Dart 7.5 points. after just beating the Philadelphia Eagles. Look, this Denver team, they're 4-2, and it has not looked good. They just beat the Jets by 2 across the pond, 13-11. Just probably the worst game of the year, if we're being completely honest here. But this Denver team is really good on defense, and they're really good in a lot of areas besides quarterback right now. And I'm a Bo Nix believer. I said after the draft last year that I thought he was going to be the best NFL quarterback out of all of them. Now I kind of want to, take that back and say it's going to be Drake May. We'll see. But Bo Nix is going to be fine, but this year it has been bad. I mean, he has regressed, and he is the reason why. I mean, they're 4-2. Right, they could be 5-1 if he had played a little bit better. They're still winning these games, but it's looked pretty ugly in a lot of them. Everybody, obviously, 77% of the public is all over the Giants. Keep in mind, this is the Giants team that lost to the Saints. Jackson Dart, I get it. Herb Street said it best on the Thursday night broadcast. He's like, I want to watch the Giants now, and I do too. Like, I want to watch that game. 4:05, Giants Broncos. Like, let me sit down and watch. Right? Can he do that against that defense? Right? Because if he does it against the Broncos defense, I mean, look out. I mean, this could be a Giants team that gets hot and messes around and goes in the playoffs. Don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. That's an interesting line. Money pouring in on the Giants. 7.5 points favored are the Denver Broncos in that game. Another great game, Colts-Chargers. Chargers, wow, I'm looking at this for the first time here. 83% of the money is on the Indianapolis Colts. My goodness. And they are 1.5-point underdogs. That line opened at 1.5, and it's still there. So Vegas clearly knows something there, as all the money's pouring in on the Colts, and they're not budging as far as that line goes. So they're pretty confident the Chargers are going to win this game. Only 17% of the money on the Chargers. Wow, that is incredible. The Colts had them at 2 in my power rankings. I don't think they're fraudulent. I think they're real. But, I also viewed the Chargers as a team that could mess around and win that division. I think they're a playoff team. They get lucky last week. I'm not going to say that. Herbert made an incredible play late, and they were able to not lose 3 in a row, and that's huge. They're 4-2. That is going to be a tremendous game. I mean, some of those 1 o'clock games on Sunday stink, but then you get to this 4 o'clock slate, and it's these 4:05 games. Giants, Broncos, and Colts, Chargers that are tremendous. A little bit later on in the evening, or actually 4:25, Packers and the Cardinals. Packers 6.5-point favorites. 57% of the money is on them. It's on the road in Arizona. I like Green Bay in this game, to be completely honest with you. I get it. They had the loss to Cleveland. Makes you scratch your head a little bit. They had the tie to Dallas. Green Bay is one of the best teams in the league. They are one of the best teams in the league. They're complete, top to bottom. They're well coached, and they've got a really good quarterback there as well. 6.5 on the road. Green Bay wins big. Especially, we'll see if Kyler's even playing in the game. Dallas, Washington at Jerry's World. 72% of the money is on the Dallas Cowboys. We got some, big discrepancies here as far as the public bets go between some of these games. 72% on the Cowboys. They're 1.5-point underdogs against the Commanders. If the Cowboys win that game, I think you're sitting there going, they still got some life here in that division. I think the Giants, by the way, are recognizing that too. Pittsburgh or Philadelphia is on a bit of a slide. The Commanders, they go to the title game last year, and now it's like, they just lost to the Bears. They're 3-3. They're not as good as many people thought. So that division, by the way, is really, really interesting. We'll see. I'm probably staying away from that game, but interesting that all the money there is on Dallas. Sunday Night Football, Falcons and the Niners. Ooh, I really like the Niners here in this spot, coming off a loss to a really good Tampa Bay team. Obviously, just had them at number 1 in my power rankings. 76% of the public money is on Atlanta. 24% is on the Niners. Niners minus 1.5 in that game. I see them picking up a victory, whether it's Brock Purdy or Mac Jones in that football game. 2 Monday night games. We've talked about it at length. Look, I don't... I hate it. I know many of you in the chat hate it as well. I don't know why they do it. I'm sure it's just for the money, but whatever. This one, I was looking at this morning. This is really interesting. Tampa Bay, 5.5-point dogs against the Lions. 77% of the money is on Tampa. 23% is on the Lions. Kind of makes you want to take the Lions there in that spot. And then Houston and Seattle is the later one. Seattle favored by 3.5 points. 63% of the money is on them. I see them winning this game. I don't know if they cover, but they're going to beat Houston. Houston's kind of, they've woken back up a little bit. They've beat up on some bad teams And I thought Houston would run away with that division. Clearly, I was wrong there. But I think Seattle's a really good football team. And I think they find their way in my power rankings after a win on Monday night. So there it is, just kind of going through the entirety of the slate there. Getting a feel for where we're at before the best bets of the weekend. Some big time, anytime when you're dealing with Vegas and you look there and it's like, 75% of the money is on this side. You usually want to go on the other side. It's not going to work every time, right? Sometimes you're going to do it, and you're going to go, why the heck did I do that? I knew I should have bet on the same team everybody else was betting on. It doesn't happen all the time, but more times than not. And we'll see what we roll out there tomorrow for our best bets of the weekend. Friday show, it's my favorite show of the week. We do our college football weekend preview. We do our best bets of the weekend. Usually we do a Bengals preview. Obviously, we're not going to be doing that, but we are going to recap the game and have our thoughts after the game as well. Hopefully, we are detailing a Bengals victory on the show tomorrow. And, a couple of, baseball. What do we have here on the baseball slate? Here tonight, I think we have both games tonight, if I'm not mistaken, and that we do. We got the Brewers here and the Dodgers. Game 3, Dodgers are up 2-0, and now they're back home. Goodness, they got Glass now on the bump against Quintana. I don't see Milwaukee being competitive in that series. I don't think the World Series is going to be a blowout. I think that's going to be really, really good. We'll see if it's the Jays or see if it, of course, is the Seattle Mariners. But I just, Milwaukee, they had a great year, but they're outmatched. They're outgunned in this game. Now they're going back to L.A. Glass now on the bump. He was great last time he took the hill. And, I think they're going to win that game. And then a great pitching matchup in Seattle. That over-under is only at 7.5, by the way. Max Scherzer, certainly not the same pitcher he once was, against Luis Castillo. La Piedra will toe the hill for Seattle. What a great series that is. I'll be at the Bengals game tonight, so not going to be able to watch it, but I'll have a close eye on that as well. I really hope it gets to 2-2, and we get like a Game 7 in this series. Mariners, Blue Jays, that's incredible. It's incredible baseball being played in that series. They can pitch. Obviously, Seattle a little bit better than Toronto, but the Jays can hit. And you were hoping, you knew the Jays could hit coming into this series, and then the first 2 games are played, and then you're like, dang, are we really going to see, them just kind of stymie out offensively with their bats? But that obviously didn't happen, as they showed up in a big way. That lineup is so deep. Vlad, unbelievable in the game. Alejandro Kirk, their catcher, was tremendous. Jimenez there, with Bichette out. He has some big swings for them. Varsho there at center field. Ernie Clement. He's an incredible player, that second baseman for them. They just got guys all over the place there for the Blue Jays. What a fun team to watch. And the Mariners, too. Just to see the electricity there in that ballpark. I talked about kind of going into the postseason. Like, when you turn on the TV and see Citizens Bank Park, the Phillies play postseason baseball, like, that just feels like postseason baseball. And I got to say, this crowd in Seattle, is absolutely electric. And that feels like postseason baseball to me. Like the Dodgers, yeah, it's iconic. It's Dodger Stadium, but I'm sure there'll be some empty seats in Dodger Stadium tonight. We'll see. But, just the environment there in Seattle. That city and that fan base is completely behind them, and that's been a tremendous series. So won't be able to view it live tonight. Maybe that's a game that, you get on your phone and you're just kind of peeking at it there. But we'll be down at the Jungle, down at Paycor Stadium. I think Cincinnati pulls it out. I think they get a victory tonight. That's me taking the bias hat off. I think it's time for this to finally translate into a victory. I think the plan is coming in place. The Bengals weren't going to come out there and say, oh, yeah, the Green Bay game, it was just a warm-up game for Flacco. We weren't going to win. They obviously weren't going to say that. We can say it, right? As people that sit there and watch, as fans, we're allowed to say that. I think that's what that was. And now I think they understand, all right, here's our season. Let's go out there and see what we got against the AFC North and against Mike Tomlin. 2-0 in the division is a possibility, and that is very, very significant. Even if you're sitting there at 3-4, which you're under 500 after the game tonight, if you win. But 2-0 in the division is very, very significant, especially after you take one against the Pittsburgh Steelers. But this can really flip your season on its head because it's been doom and gloom over the past couple of weeks, and rightfully so. But you win this game, the state of the AFC, all right, the state of the rest of your division, the state of your schedule as it lies ahead, I think we're sitting there talking about if you win this game, we can start having that conversation. I get it's early, but we're going to be talking about, Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow, he might come back. How's that toe doing? Are those toe workouts? He's moving around now. The boot's off. He's on the sideline. There he is. I think now we can start having that conversation a little bit if they win this game. And it's huge. Absolutely huge. Short week, prime time, Thursday night football, Bengals, Steelers. What more can you ask for? I'm fired up. I know you guys are fired up as well. Can't wait to talk about it on tomorrow's show. But as always, appreciate everybody for tuning in. If you missed any parts of the show, that's fine. Podcast will be up later this afternoon along with some clips there on YouTube. Don't miss out. Hit that sub button for us, youtube.com/chatterboxsports. Talk to you all tomorrow. Big game tonight. Who day, everybody?